So 2024 is wrapping up now, and while inevitably there are movies that are forgotten as soon as the credits roll, there's also been plenty of great films that released this year that had a lot of rewatch value and instantly were gonna make this list. So I put together a list of my favorites that released in 2024, and if I can find where they're currently streaming, I'll have the information linked down below. And while these are in no particular order, all of these were excellent films that had a medley of factors that made them standouts among the rest of the films that released this year. Starting with Oddity, this film is about a psychiatrist's wife who is brutally murdered in her newly acquired country house. Said wife's sister Darcy, a clairvoyant who also happens to be blind, investigates the crime, uncovering a sinister plot involving her sister's husband, Ted. In terms of suspense and tension, this movie is among the scariest of the year. The film is literally set in an isolated house in the middle of nowhere, and as such, you feel how cold the environment is and how isolated they are. The movie does a great job at creating challenging scenarios, and while there certainly is magic in the film, it does a great job at teasing if it's actually real or not. The performances by Carolyn Bracken and Gwilyn Lee were fantastic, and the wooden golem thing is so unsettling that throughout the movie you realize it's only a matter of time before that monstrosity makes its move. Compounded with the ending that is devastating and cathartic all at the same time, this movie was just incredible. For number 2, I believe it would be Heretic. Two Mormon missionaries attempt to convert a reclusive man, but realize he is more dangerous than he seems. It's literally a cast of a total of 3 people pretty much, and it's set in one location. This movie is brilliant because it understands what works best for the story it's trying to tell. Sophie Thatcher, Chloe East, and of course Hugh Grant were unbelievable in the film. The dynamic between the 3 just worked so well, and their chemistry on screen never let the movie lose its rhythm and kept progressing the story in interesting ways. It has really daring and audacious dialogue that really needed to be comfortable with the idea of pushing boundaries for it to work, and it does. It's not a movie for everyone, especially if sensitive to subject matter like this, where it challenges the ideology behind beliefs and nurture-built systems, then this one might be uncomfortable. But personally, I think the film is great. It creates one of those atmospheres where because you're rattled, you do a nervous laugh, and the girls really do emulate and project that feeling perfectly. Inside Out 2, without a doubt, is one of the best films of the year, considering Disney and Pixar's recent track record over the last years. They keep dropping flop after flop, and like many others, I was nervous that they were gonna ruin the potential of continuing Riley's story. Much to my surprise, they absolutely smashed it with this sequel. I'm very much of the opinion that a sequel has to be able to prove its need to exist. To me, for a sequel to exist, it needs to explore more themes that were already established and expand the universe that were already built and make it feel bigger and more open to possibility. The movie was such a blast. All the emotions were handled excellently. Maya Hawke as anxiety was iconic, and the climax resolution was done so brilliantly and sensitively that you can't help but praise it. Joy ultimately realizes she can't just keep bulldozing her way through to the other emotions, and not just forcing anxiety to listen to her commands, and instead giving her the space she needs to work through it herself was just fantastic. Oh my god, I hate giving numerical ratings, since it's too abstract with too many variable factors, and that's why this list is in no particular order. But if there was one movie I'd probably say was my movie of the year, it would be The Substance. This movie is brilliant in every sense of the word. It follows a fading celebrity, Elizabeth Sparkle, who, after being fired by her producer due to her age, uses a black market drug that creates a much younger version of herself with unexpected side effects. This movie is probably the most devastating and miserable movie of the year. It goes without saying that the practical effects were fantastic, with it looking so similar to a Cronenberg film, but the bold colors were also so vibrant and memorable. The red hallway that is reminiscent of The Shining, the reanimator-like fluid that is The Substance, even the iconic yellow jacket Elizabeth wears was all such good eye candy. But the themes wallowing in the past and not living in the present, being afraid of growing old and forgotten, I think there's few worse feelings than being uncomfortable in your own skin. Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley delivered Oscar-worthy performances filled with so much excitement and joy, but also pain and misery. Having a shared conscience was such a brilliant way to explore the real fear of aging in such good, interesting, nuanced ways. I absolutely adore this film, and to me, this is Coralie Fargé's magnum magnum opus, and I don't think that too many would argue against that. Sean Baker's Anora is without a doubt one of the strongest films of the year. We follow Annie, a young sex worker from Brooklyn whose life takes an unexpected turn when she meets and impulsively marries Vanya, the impetuous son of a Russian billionaire. However, when Vanya's parents catch wind of the union, they send their henchmen to annul the marriage, setting off a wild chase throughout the streets of New York. It's basically a modern Cinderella story, but this movie has everything: comedy, heart, drama, and passion, all while successfully destigmatizing multiple things, but in particular sex workers' lives. Mikey Madison has never been better than in this film. She demonstrates a rawness in the film that not only enhances the film, but also is required for the film to be as effective as it is. The movie is hilarious, and Annie's banter with Ager is so charming and cute because they have so much chemistry in spite of taking jabs at each other throughout the film. Sean Baker loves his unique endings, but they are not afraid of being realistic at the same time. So while the ending of this film is hurtful and emotional, it had the grounded feel that is so synonymous with Baker's style. This movie is incredible, and I can't wait for any future projects that Sean Baker spearheads. For number 6, Parker Finn returns to the world of Smile, and in this year's Smile 2, we follow Sky Riley, a pop star who begins to experience a series of incredibly disturbing events just as she is about to embark on tour. This movie has probably one of my favorite cold opens of any movie to have released this year. You give me Kyle Gallner, who's one of my favorite actors in the business currently, along with a seamlessly long one take of him trying to escape a messy situation, only to have one of the most brutal conclusions to his character, and I'm gonna be fully invested in the film. Sky's descent into madness is filled with fun and intense twists that suit the paranoid atmosphere perfectly. Some of the scares rival even the original film's best. The setup for some of the scares are genius and cleverly made. In particular, I love the idea of the entity not being limited to just one physical manifestation. It's hugely unsettling when the mob of people assault Sky in her apartment. I also just love the exploration of power and social class not being a barrier to which people can't experience hardships. For some issues, no amount of money can fix them, and the film uses that to its full capability. Sure, I personally still prefer the original, but this was a great follow-up. Alien Romulus is our first entry into the Alien universe since 2017. So while it's been a while, I don't think it's a stretch to say that the later Alien films had a noticeable drop in quality. But then, Fede Alvarez, who made the amazing Evil Dead remake and Don't Breathe, was announced as the director for Romulus, and I knew he was gonna deliver a banger. In a way, this movie goes back to the basics and works mainly off of the information that was established in the first 2 films of the franchise, but sprinkles in plenty of fan service and reverence for other entries in the franchise. The film has a strong femme fatale in Rain, played by Kaylee Spaney, and a sympathetic and lovable as hell support character in Andy, played by David Johnson. The look of the xenomorphs went back to when they looked menacing and horrifyingly dangerous, and just in general, the special effects of the film was so frickin' good. And while as a whole the film feels like its own story or awesome side mission that doesn't necessarily need to be attached to the overall narrative, but it also leaves plenty of room to continue the story from this point on as well. Oz Perkins released the much anticipated Longlegs, as personally, I was really looking forward to this one. The premise follows an FBI agent in the 1990s who is tasked with tracking down an occultist serial killer responsible for murdering multiple families throughout Oregon. The movie had probably the most uncanny and unsettling aura of any film that came out this year. Micah Monroe was spectacular as she played the mystified, almost hypnotic character that is sharp and calculated, but you always feel like something about her is just not right. I wish Kiernan Shipka had more time in the film because the few moments she had were so captivating and mesmerizing. She's amazing, and of course the titular Longlegs, played by Nick Cage, was among the best performances he's ever given in my opinion. He's haunting and unnerving, but he's having so much fun that it oozes out of his delivery, and he had one of the most fun songs of the year. The film has a very personal feel to it as well, what with family relations being such an imposing theme throughout the film, and the magical element of the film really didn't pull me out of it because I feel like movies need to take outlandish leaps at times for the audience to be engaged, and ultimately it's a movie. You have to buy into something sometimes, no matter how absurd it may seem. And I love the ending. Ambiguity and open-minded interpretation for a movie like this works so well, especially when it contrasts so harshly with the formulaic and logic-based puzzles that were prominent throughout the film. I had to put Sonic 3 on this list. Oh my god, this movie just kicks a lot of ass. Certainly saying it's nostalgia bait is a statement with little argument, but honestly, I don't care. It's so good. Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails work together to battle Shadow, but with their abilities outmatched in every way, they seek out an unlikely alliance to stop Shadow and protect the planet. This movie culminates in the best way possible because it listened to the people's critiques about how the previous films, while good, could have been improved. They added so much love to the movie with honestly so many jaw-dropping moments and sequences that gave a euphoric feeling of seeing the realization of so many epic moments come to the big screen. It felt like it was made by people that care, you know? This movie is as grand and epic as scale as you'd hope for, and all this without even mentioning how much heart the movie has. It's the most emotional movie of the franchise so far, with beautiful illustration of crucial moments in the lore of Sonic's world, and having a powerful exploration of dealing with loss and troubled pasts, and how they shouldn't define your present and future. You always have a choice, and every character had their moment in the limelight. Jim Carrey is an American treasure, and he delivered probably his best performance in the series. I love this movie and will forever appreciate the existence of this film. And finally in 10th, not because it's the worst of the list, but because it released last in the year, Robert Eggers' rendition of Nosferatu was an amazing retelling of a tale as old as time with his own signature style. It's a gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and the terrifying vampire Nosferatu, who is infatuated with her, causing untold horror in its wake. Robert Eggers loves his wordy, stunning looking period pieces, so it's like this premise was made for a director like him. Its scale and presentation are on a whole other level. This movie is beautiful to say the least. Across the board, everybody delivers unbelievably strong performances, and in particular, Lily Rose Depp was just so engrossed in her character. She gave life and texture to a character that really didn't have any in her original iteration. So much of the movie felt dreamlike, and maybe that's due to how vividly clear magic played its own role in the film, but reality and time sometimes felt otherworldly and uncertain. The makeup effects team about deleted Bill Skarsgård from the film because you could never recognize him unless you saw his name on the billing list. Characters felt at times manic, but that just added to the hysteria and mania that washed over this world. This might not be my favorite Eggers film, but certainly it's a great film that, if anything, reaffirms to people that Eggers' masterful vision is one of a kind. And that's the list. There were plenty of movies that were really good, but just missed out on the list, and some honorable mentions for sure would be Abigail and Challengers. But that's it for me. I'd appreciate a thumbs up, subscribe, happy holidays, happy New Year's, and sincerely yours, Anthony. See y'all next year.